Okay, so where do we start with the Celtics? First, I want to talk about the current roster. Then I think that we all agree there have to be additions. As I remember, all the great players, and Bob has pointed this out, whether it was Michael Jordan or whether it was Larry Bird, and I'm not comparing any of these guys to this, in the offseason, they all improved their games. Larry lost weight. He had to get more athletic. Michael became more of a distributor, more of a team guy. Jordan also hit the gym, obviously, with the weights. So, with Ime Udoka, now here's the real test. Bob, I'll start with you. Marcus Smart can become, we heard what Jeff said. We'll wait and see. Can he become a better point guard? Does he stay here in the offseason? Does he work with Udoka? Does Tatum stay here and work in the offseason? Does Jaylen Brown get better with his dribble? I mean, my God, you can get better at this stuff if you work at it in the offseason.
Hard to get better at your handle. Hard to get better at your handle.
Really?
That's one area that if you talk to enough people in the league, they will say that generally it's kind of like instinct. Same thing with Marcus Smart and point guard instincts. Do you have them or don't you? Now, you can have a mindset of being more of a facilitator, but either you see that play or you don't see that play. Either you have a good handle, you can get your shot better, but generally your handle is your handle. And that's a little scary for the Celtics' two best players right now.
Yeah, I'm going to take you at your word on that. I'd like to think that he can improve.
I'm sure they can improve. I'm not saying they can't get better at it, but marginally. I don't think all of a sudden you're going to see Jaylen Brown have this incredible handle. He's going to be able to go to the basket and avoid some of those strips that he's been getting hit with here lately.
Well, something happened in this January. We still don't know what the receiver was, and he began to act much more like a conventional point guard, including the game I keep citing when he took 3 shots from the floor and had 13 assists, something we never thought was even remotely possible, and he did that. So I'm reasonably confident that we'll see that guy continually next year. But when you talk about improvement, Garrett, Bird went home one year and he came back working on his post up. He had a little throw shot in the baseline. He worked on his left hand one year, and Magic went home and became a better shooter. Magic was a very mediocre and not really much of a 3-point threat when he started. And by the end of his career, he was. And so anyway, guys, the great ones have traditionally done that. So, but they can't get much better. I think it's a matter of polish. It's a matter of, what lessons they can learn from this way. Maybe they'll study or Amy can help them study what the Warriors did and how you guys can reach that next level. But basically, you don't want to mess with the core group. I'm more concerned about but how much more does Al have? That's one concern.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and let's get to that, Bob. Let's get to the bench right now, because to me, God bless, Grant and all that, but I really want an Eddie House. We need a PJ Brown. The Celtics, they cannot stand pat, and they have to start with the bench.
And well, the bench came up, with goose egg in the biggest game of the year. Yeah, obviously we got no points based essentially from the bench with 0. It's controversial basket by Pritchard by Williams. The Pritchard was 0 for the game. White had laid an egg last night, and it was bad. I don't want to give up on him. I still think we saw too many good things on him, but they need help. I mean, is Pritchard the answer? Probably not. I guess they definitely need a shooter. They got to find a shooter. I've been screaming about this for a long time. But and any kind of good player that they can have that would bolster the roster, that can be in a rotation that would help for sure. But I'm more, sooner or later they're going to have to replace Al. I mean, I don't know what,
next year. He's got 1 year left, and I believe, I don't know how much. I think half of it is.
Well, I wouldn't even ask for any more than one.
Right. No. Right. Exactly.
So if they can get the same or 85% or 90% of what they gave him this year, I'm fine with that.
You're going to get more out of Rob. You need a healthy Robert Williams.
Yes.
That's the difference from this year's team to next year's team, right? Yep. That's the one thing you can look at and say, all right, you know what? That could be significantly different in terms of the player and the health and the impact, because Grant Williams is probably, listen, I'm not sure if he's ever going to shoot the ball as well as he did this year again. I'm not saying it was a complete aberration here. He got better. He worked at it, but he shot the hell out of the ball. If he could shoot high 30s from three, that's a win. Peyton Pritchard is what he is, guys. He is what he is. Derek White hopefully can be more like the recent Derek White, not game 6, but prior to that, and he can make some shots and share point guard duties with Marcus Smart. So it's not just on Marcus Smart. But Robert Williams is the difference. I think you could, to me, Tice is still making a good amount of money. He's making about $9 million a year. He's fine as your rotation big, but you need Robert Williams to be better. Everybody else to take steps. Tatum and Brown to just be smarter in their decision making as much as anything else, right? Smarter in their decision making. And then you got to add one more piece, right? And hopefully you bring on a veteran who wants to compete and maybe doesn't have an NBA title on their resume and looks at this team now and says, you know what? They were 2 games away. If I go there, I know I'm going to have a chance to compete for a title. So I'll go there for a little bit less money.
What do you want out of Robert Williams offensively?
Well, that pass he had last night shows you that you can play through Robert Williams to me at times. And he's not Al in terms of his decision making. But I think what you have with Robert Williams when he's healthy is that lob threat consistently. When Tatum or Jaylen Brown are driving to the basket and they don't know what to do at times, just throw it up there because that dude's going to go get it. And he couldn't do that through the postseason consistently because his knee wouldn't allow him to.
No, hey, let's take a look at the conference next year. So Chris Middleton's healthy. It's a different ball game. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what's going to happen in Brooklyn. I have no idea.
Nobody does.
Miami's going to get better, right? I mean, Miami needs to add some pieces.
Are they going to get better? Why are they going to get better? Kyle
well, I'm saying, okay. If I'm Brad Stevens, this is what I'm thinking. I have to assume Miami's going to get better. I have to assume that.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'd assume that because Kyle Lowry's only going to get older. And
aren't they going to add pieces, Jeff? I mean, if you're Miami, you got to add pieces.
And you may. All I'm saying is they got a lot of money locked up right now, and Jimmy Butler's got a lot of mileage on that body, and Lowry's getting older, and I don't know. Maybe. I mean, again, I think Milwaukee's the one I'd worry about in the East because you beat them without their all-star, their second all-star, their Robin, which is Chris Middleton, and they have that culture of still winning. Again, not at the level Golden State did with consistency, but they got one. And that one means a lot, especially when Middleton comes back healthy. They just got that kind of that chemistry. They got what the Celtics kind of think they have, but still need to do it a little bit longer.
And Philly's a wild card.
Well, Philly's a wild card, but Harden, I just think Harden's just going to keep going down.
Well, if he does, meanwhile, because Embiid's in his prime,
right.
That's for sure.
Right. That's a shame. Well, what I'm saying, I guess overall, Bob, my overall thought is not to take anything away from the Celtics, and everything happens. Something goes down during the year. Every year, somebody gets hurt, but they had a path this year.
Sure.
And I don't want to assume that they're going to get back. I don't want to assume that. No, Brad Stevens, I got to take a hard look at things to remain competitive.
You're wise to do that, and I will only go so far as to say they should be in the mix. They will be in the mix again. But no, this is. I'm not naive. This is an opportunity that they're going to regret. I think, and because it was there, and yet on the one hand, on the other hand, we identify they just weren't up to it yet. They weren't good enough yet. I was deluded after game 3. I swear I'll say it again. I thought they were the better team. I thought if they don't beat themselves, they're going to win this thing. And yes, it wasn't the only way they lost was beating themselves. The other team had a guy that, couldn't match.
Exactly. Well, you thought at that point, and a lot of people did, that we could put Tatum and Steph in the same conversation.
Well, yeah. I mean, Jeff, to your point. I
was there.
I have to say, I'm kind of shocked Tatum didn't step up.
Of course, we all are.
I mean, I'm really shocked. I'm like, I really expected it. I don't think less of him, but that's why I still wonder about that shoulder.
I thought he'd go for 40 last night. I really did. I believe.
So did I.
And I believe he'd go down firing. period. And,
So
and
did
that
I.
that's, I guess, the part of his game that he's got to grow the most. And it's, I've said this before, we crucified him for being selfish and taking those dumb step back threes at times, or driving into the lane
Right.
and throwing it up there with two guys on him. And now he generally made the right play and was probably too selfless in our minds last night and through the series, right? Should have been more assertive, should have been more selfish, drive the basket, try to do something. So I think he's still trying to figure out what the right play is and when to put your foot on the gas and when to trust your teammates. And at 24,
that's always, that is the story when people have a certain level of skill and they can accomplish, it's hard. The word I use, calibrate. That's the trick. And I remind people, it took Michael Jordan, he didn't win till his 7th year. And it wasn't just because of the surrounding cast, trust me. He figured something, he finally figured out that calibration. And LeBron, clearly after 2011, he realized things that I gotta be more assertive. He was too deferential. And I keep saying, Michael only won when he learned how to share, and LeBron only won when he finally won, when he learned how to recognize he's the best player on the floor and act accordingly, and how best to utilize that skill while incorporating everybody else. It's not easy. It's a hard, subtle thing to do. If you're that type of player with that level of skill, the burden, suddenly there's a burden, And,
you know what the hard part is? Here's the only difference I would say with Tatum and like LeBron, you go, obviously Jordan, you go Kobe. Those guys were so athletic. Tatum's not that, right? He relies a ton on, as Bob said, his skill. I called him the most complete player, and maybe that was the wrong terminology, but I think he's got the most complete skill set in the NBA. That may be more accurate. A guy who can shoot it from 3, can shoot it from mid-range, can score around the basket, can defend, can rebound, can pass, can do it all. But he's not a great athlete. He's a very good athlete, but he's not LeBron, he's not MJ, he's not Kobe. Those guys could at any point just say, I'm going to go get one, because they were big, strong, athletic. Tatum's not that, and you could see that last night against Wiggins.
Yeah, well, some of the times when he goes to the basket, he finishes with an awful lot of dexterity. I mean, that to me, that's athleticism. Another guy has to be in this general discussion as to, having the range of skill, and it's Durant. We don't want to forget Durant, in this discussion, because he can get any shot.
7-1 helps there too.
He can get any shot he wants. Right. And he's not a notably great passer. Good enough,
Yeah.
Anyway.